This is day 4 of this July 2025 7-day session. And day 4 is when things start to flow more easily. No guarantees, but based on decades of my own practice and working with students, chances are that although thoughts and pain and drowsiness may still occur in this second half, the worst of it is over. The drowsiness and the pain are largely the effect of the thoughts, of clinging to thoughts. And thoughts just thin out as sesshin moves on. It's not even so much our effort that's doing that, it's just sitting still for 9 or 10 or 11 or more hours a day and making some effort at keeping the mind on the practice will leave the thoughts thinning out, settling. It's inevitable. If you think that you're an exception, then you're just not seeing your mind the way it is. Thoughts settle over the days. And as thoughts settle, these pesky problems of drowsiness and pain are not as bad. They sort of recede. They recede into the background more. Other problems may arise. Other problems with one's psychological afflictions. But these other things, they kind of get swept along by the growing power of one's zazen, sitting and moving zazen. Almost all awakening experiences, not all of them, but almost all, happen in the second half of sesshin. As one, fewer thoughts just means fewer thoughts about oneself. And that sort of clears the way for seeing beyond self and other. I'm going to return to our text. This is a book called The Original Face, an anthology of Rinzai Zen. And we were reading from the 13th century Zen master Daikaku. Just a little more on this, and then we're going to skip to another master. The questioner, the question, let's put it that way, the question. Some say we should turn to the point where not a single thought is born. What about this? Daikaku. The non-production of a single thought is an expression referring to complete absence of any signs of birth, extinction, going, or coming. That is, any attachment to change. Birth and death, and that's suffering, come from the mind. If you don't know where thoughts come from, you cannot know the root of birth and death. Sentient beings are constantly afflicted by lustful, angry, foolish thoughts. Those are the three poisons, greed, anger, and delusion, which drive them, making them turn away from their inherent nature. If the clouds of delusive thought clear, the moon of our self-nature appears. The thoughts you hated before then become knowledge and wisdom. And you can use these thoughts to talk about reality and teach. Chao Zhou said, "You people are used by the 24 hours. I make use of the 24 hours." The way this is translated, it sounds like he's kind of bragging, but it just couldn't possibly be the case with Zhao Zhou. He didn't begin teaching till he was 80, and reportedly lived to the age of 120. So every koan in which Zhao Zhou appeared, it's Joshu, every koan in which he appears, he's at least 80. Well, not everyone, because in a couple of them he's the student. But whenever he's the master in any koan, he's 80 or 90 or 100 or 110. So he's really saying, rather than being used rather than being driven, to use Daikaku's word, rather than being used by this discriminating mind all the time, you can reach the point where then you can use it in a wise way to help others. Question: even if thoughts arise, by the way, let me go back to this non-production of a single thought. I think this is different from the idea that no thought arises. Non-production of a single thought is different from not arising of any thought. I don't know. I would, just based on my experience, that non-production means not generating more thoughts with your attention on the wrong thing. I don't know about a realm where no thought ever arises. You don't have to. Thoughts in themselves are not the problem. It's our attachment to them, our clinging to them. And if we don't cling to them, if we just leave them alone, then in Zen we can sometimes call this no thought. A little bit like anger. If anger arises and we don't cling to it, we don't nurse it with thoughts about the supposed offense, or the person who may, then it's almost like it's not anger. Hiroshi Kepler used to quote Harada Roshi in Japan as saying the anger of the enlightened person is like snow falling on wet pavement. It's not that there's never any snow, but it doesn't last. It's a huge difference from the ordinary person, how their experience of anger. But then back to the questioner here. Even if thoughts arise, they have no reality of their own. Okay, the questioner is speaking from the point of view of the non-substantiality of thoughts. So what's wrong? And then Daikaku says, even though they have no reality of their own, meaning no substance to them, no roots to them, as soon as they arise, you go wrong. It's like things in a dream. When you awaken, you realize they were unreal. Weren't you mistaken? That is, weren't you deceived by the dream? That which makes mistakes and produces dreams is the sentient being's false views. One day, if they hear the teaching of enlightenment are inspired with faith, this is much better. Even so, those who do not have a really genuine aspiration for enlightenment do not realize the errors of their minds because their application of effort is not careful. Even though from time to time they suppress small thoughts, they are not aware of the big thoughts. If you don't cut off the root source, even if you have some affinity with the way, it will be impossible to escape birth and death. That is, to go beyond suffering. This translation, small thoughts and big thoughts, may not be the best. Small thoughts are these little harmless things that are flitting through the mind all the time, and that we have some choice as to whether we stick to them. Big thoughts, I think, well, the way I see it is he's talking about our deeper delusions about ourself and others and the nature of reality. These are notions, let's call them notions, or concepts that are more deeply ingrained and are not so easily sanded off with a few sessions. These are the ones that keep causing us trouble. And the real trouble is we don't see them. We're not aware of them. We just kind of assume unconsciously that that's the way people are. That's the way things are. And then if we stick with this long enough, we come to see that they were acquired, these notions, these concepts about reality. We picked them up somewhere along the way, and then we just kept nursing them somehow. It's so sobering after many, 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 many years of practice to still from time to time realize that, oh, I didn't realize I had that notion, that it's just kind of in the grain of the wood. I didn't see that it was something I had acquired a long time ago. Question. The sixth patriarch said, it's way known, do not think any good or bad at all. To have no thoughts about good or bad surely is the essential point of sitting meditation. What are little thoughts and big thoughts? Daikaku. Do not think any good or bad at all are words that cut directly. Not only in sitting meditation are they to be applied. If you reach this state, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down are all meditation. There's no need to cling to the form of sitting. An ancestor said, walking is also meditation. Sitting is also meditation. Speaking, silent, active or still, the body is at rest. The mind is at rest. And then back to Daikaku. One of the Buddha's discourses says, we are always in it, walking around, sitting, and lying down. Little thoughts are thoughts that suddenly arise about what is before you. Big thoughts are thoughts of things like greed, hatred, folly, false views, conceit, jealousy, name and fame, profit, and support, When sitting in meditation, those whose wills are weak may keep back little thoughts, but such thoughts as these, the big ones, these afflictions, will remain unaware in their mind. Giving up these bigger thoughts, these notions, is called directly cutting off the root source. When you cut off the root source, afflictions become enlightenment, delusion becomes wisdom, the three poisons become the three bodies of pure discipline, ignorance becomes the objective reality of great knowledge. Need we even speak of little thoughts? But here's the thing: these bigger problems, thought, emotional problems, are held in place by our clinging to the small thoughts. The two are related. Because you could say that these so-called big thoughts, our delusions, our reactive tendencies, our blind passions, are nourished by our attachment to small thoughts. So we don't have to sit and think about getting rid of the big ones, that is, greed, hatred, delusion, jealousy, and so forth. That goes along with our non-clinging to the thoughts, other thoughts as they come up. Question. Someone who has long developed accomplishment at sitting meditation and whose work is pure and mature, their spiritual work, shouldn't have any afflictions or delusion in her mind. How can those who are just beginning to practice put an end to afflictions? And then the Master. Don't despise afflictions. Just purify your mind. Don't despise afflictions. Yeah, don't give anything in the mind other than practice that kind of attention. And then he quotes an ancient master, "To practice the way you must be made of iron. Lay hold of the mind and it's settled. Directly approaching unexcelled enlightenment, don't worry about any right or wrong." And then Daikaku says, laying hold of the mind means judging if the mind is in a proper state or not. Yeah, judging, I think we have to appreciate that judging can be a good thing. That is, it's more in the realm of discerning. A teacher or even a school teacher has to exercise judgment with her students. So judging if the mind is in a proper state or not, I see that as being able to notice and discern the condition of the mind at any moment, whether we're in thoughts or not. Those who know their mind's errors are wise ones, and those with wisdom should not be deluded. It is like taking a lamp into a dark cave where sunlight or moonlight has never come in. The old darkness doesn't go outside, but suddenly it becomes light inside. With the light of wisdom, the darkness of ignorance and affliction don't have to go away to be gone. At night, the sky is dark, but when the sunlight comes out, the sky becomes daylight. The mind is also like this. Illusion is darkness, enlightenment is light. When the light of wisdom shines, the darkness of affliction suddenly turns light. Enlightenment is not something separate. So we don't have to get rid of our afflictions, our defilements. We just have to bring the light of awareness. That is the awareness, this concentration on the practice, and then these things disappear. All right, I'm going to now leave Daikaku's treatise on meditation, and skip back to another entry, another segment of this anthology, and that is the Dharma heir of Hakuin, Torei. Just a little nugget of biographical information here in the introduction about Torei. The editor says that Hakuin and his enlightened successor, Torei, both went through exhausting years of effort. Hakuin's first awakening took place when he was 24, his great awakening at 27, and his final realization at the age of 43. Now, Torei, like Ananda of old, Ananda was the attendant of the Buddha and then became part of the Dharma lineage. Torei, like Ananda, was first awakened as he began to lie down, exhausted and driven to distraction by his intense efforts in sitting. Later he met Hakuin, but became desperately ill and had to be healed before continuing his work with Hakuin. And Torei's years are 1721 to 1792. So he lived to be 71. And he begins in what the Zen school calls ascending directly from the state of an ordinary person to Buddha. There are 5 discriminations. One is the meaning of same nature. Second, the meaning of different paths. Third, the meaning of urgency. Fourth, the meaning of progressive practice. And fifth, the meaning of returning to the basis. This is the essential road. First, same nature. The fundamental nature inherent in sentient beings is not other than the fundamental nature of all the Buddhas of the past present, and future. Remember, sentient beings is just another way of saying the unenlightened, the so-called unenlightened. So the fundamental nature of the unenlightened is not other than the fundamental nature of all enlightened ones. Their range of powers and qualities are also equal. Their lights are radiant. Their knowledge, wisdom, and miraculous powers are all the same. This may be likened to the light rays of the great solar disk shining everywhere on the mountains, rivers, and plains, so nothing is not illumined. Gold and jewels are bright in themselves, even when they are in mud. We have all kinds of gold and jewels in this zendo. However, blind people do not see, are not aware of this light, even though they are in its very midst. So that's the equality aspect of this true nature. And then second, different paths. Although in their fundamental nature Buddhas and sentient beings are the same substance, no different, the directions of their minds are different. Buddhas shine inward to illumine the basic mind, fundamental nature, whereas sentient beings turn outward and get involved with myriad things. That is why sentient beings create greed and lust for things they desire, anger and rage towards people they dislike, and become fools by becoming congealed in their thoughts. Confused and stupefied by these three poisons, they have lost their very fundamental mind. And he would be the first to say, not really lost. You can't lose it. No one can ever lose what they didn't have to gain in the first place. It's just nature. It's our nature, this fundamental mind. So this, how ordinary people, we turn outward and get involved with, he says, myriad things, objects. The mind, we find, and we learn this most of all in Sesshin, the mind is always turning and looking outward at others, other people, other things. And the worst problem of all, objects, thoughts. Those are the real troublemakers as far as objects, our thoughts. And so what we're doing in Zazen, whether it's Sesshin or not, is turning the mind around and taking it off of objects, thoughts, and other objects. He goes on, those in whom greed and lust run deep turn into hungry ghosts. Here we are back in the 6 realms of unenlightened existence that I talked about a couple of days ago. Those in whom anger and rage run deep become anti-gods, or fighting spirits, asuras. And those deep in folly and delusion become animals. Those in whom the 3 poisons are equal fall into hell and suffer various miseries. These are called the 4 bad dispositions. They are most dreadful. So these are the 4 lowest of the 6 realms of unenlightened existence. Just a word about hell, so-called the realm of hell. I think it's easiest to understand this. Just all 4 of them actually as just states of mind, or states of evolution even, but not places. We say in Buddhism, we say hell. We're not talking about underground with flames and pitchforks and devils. Just mean a place of a state of great, great suffering. And the really big difference between Buddhist hells or these 6 realms, and the important thing is that these are, none of it is permanent. I never had any religious upbringing, and it's still just staggering to me that people think that they can go to some permanent place called hell. Permanent. Phew, permanent. Where we can ascend and descend through these 6 realms. Just a stream of consciousness here about hell. One little kind of hell, maybe a mild hell state, is comparing oneself to others. It's so painful. Who would want to do that? Comparing what one thinks of one's own practice with what thinks of others' practice. That's what it is. You're not even comparing your practice to others' practice. You're comparing your notion of your practice versus your notion of other people's practice. I bring this up because I do remember doing that, and I've heard from all too many people who do the same thing. Spare yourself that misery. Don't waste your time directing your mind to others in that respect. It's one of the great privileges of sitting in the teacher's seat in Doksan is to see that we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. Pretty much everyone is fighting the same battle, struggling with the same things. And then Torei continues, even though they have greed, anger, and delusion, those who restrain themselves and are not self-indulgent are in the human realm, and in this way will not lose this bodily form life after life. This is interesting. I remember a long time ago I asked Roshi Kapleau whether we could be reborn, because I never doubted rebirth, whether we could be reborn as animals. That's what a lot of people think of when they think of rebirth. Oh yeah, your cat was your grandmother, and he said very calmly. He said, "My understanding is that you'd have to really blow it as a human being. Really have to do some terrible things to lose your human, the course of human existence." And that's what Torei seems to be saying here. Those who restrain themselves and are not self-indulgent in this way will not lose this bodily form life after life. And then he says, those in whom greed, anger, and delusion gradually quiet down and who are not self-indulgent even though they don't restrain themselves. That's I had to reread that 2 or 3 times this morning. Who are not self-indulgent even though they don't restrain themselves are born in heaven, known as the gods of the 6 heavens of desire. I guess it means it comes. You don't need to restrain yourself because you've kind of evolved to the point where it's not necessary. You just don't have the cravings that would make you self-indulgent. Torre continues, if you want to be free from this world of suffering, first you must contemplate impermanence. Those who are born must inevitably die. Even the young are not exempt. Even the strong are in danger. Even the rich and prosperous decline. Even the noble and exalted cannot remain that way. Even a long life does not last more than 80 years or so. Thus, this world being impermanent, there is nothing enjoyable. The poor, that is, there's nothing enjoyable if you have awareness of the precarious state of life. The poor suffer from lack. The rich suffer from possessions. The high suffer from their high status. The low suffer from their low status. This would be more meaningful in the hierarchical society that was ancient China, Japan, and Korea. They suffer over food and clothing. They suffer over wives and children. Suffer over wealth. Suffer over official rank. This may pause. A lot of people, probably not many in this Zendo and listening online, many people might think, what do you mean, suffer over wealth? How do you figure? Doesn't that solve all our problems? Well, we know this, it doesn't. They've even done studies that confirm this, that beyond a decent level of comfort, that is, of having enough food and shelter and so forth, having more money doesn't make you happier. It can become very much a burden, they say. And then Torre continues, anyway, if you don't annihilate the nature of affliction somehow and arrive on the path of liberation, even if you ascend to the rank of sovereign of a nation, great minister, deity, spirit, or wizard, it is still evanescent as lightning and morning dew, lasting only for a while. Even if you ascend to the rank of a cabinet officer, Oval Office, governorship, CEO of a huge company, it is still evanescent as lightning and morning dew. Everyone surely gets this. We all get it in the mind. Yeah, okay, sure, we all die, yeah, of course. But I'll just say this, as you get older, it becomes more real. As you see family, friends dying, becoming afflicted with disease and afflictions and injuries. It becomes more and more real. But it's always been the case that young people, it's harder to convince us when we're young. It all seems a little abstract, getting old and dying. Our time is up, so we'll stop and recite the 4 vows.